Hello everyone, welcome to this new live stream. It's been quite some time since I last did a live stream. I think my previous live stream was at the end of last year, and as it so happened, end of last year we had checked ChatGPT's integration into macOS and how it could be used more or less seamlessly within Xcode. And this year, well, now we finally have an actual built-in native integration of ChatGPT into Xcode, so we're going to give it a try. Just before I start, I always want to say it when I test a new feature, especially an AI feature. I'm doing this live stream. We are June 30th, 2025. We are a few years, not a few years, a few weeks after WWDC. So that means that I'm running a beta 2 of Xcode 26. And even though ChatGPT evolves, not directly, evolves, you can see it's the end of the day and it's quite hot where I am. So feeling a bit tired. Hopefully it will still be okay. But yeah, I wanted to say that, so even though ChatGPT evolves independently from Xcode, meaning that well, Xcode on its own cannot improve the performance of ChatGPT. The way that Xcode communicates with ChatGPT itself might evolve. Typically, we'll see it when we will test it, but right now Xcode offers functions, they're called tools to ChatGPT that ChatGPT can then invoke. Typically, ChatGPT can ask Xcode to search for the content of given files, and well, if Xcode has more tools that ChatGPT can use, that could improve the result. All that to say, if you're watching this video, please look at the time when it was made, because it's possible if you're watching the video a few months or even a few years from when it was recorded, well, maybe the features in Xcode have changed quite a lot. It's a live stream, so please don't forget to react and interact in the chat. If you have any question, any remark, please say it in the chat. I always love reading them, interacting with them, and if possible, trying to also answer your questions. I can't always do it, but I always try to do my best to answer them. And just before we get started, I have a big thank you for the sponsor of this live stream. So let me show it on the screen. So this live stream is sponsored by RevenueCat. So you probably know about RevenueCat if you follow my channel. It's historically it was an SDK that could handle in-app purchases for you, but now it's gotten more features like analytics, like being handled to handle web payments, which might be a very timely feature if you have lots of customers in the US right now. And they also offer a really nice feature to build paywalls and be able to update your paywalls without needing to update your app itself. So basically, if you offer in-app purchases, or if you ever plan to offer in-app purchases in your app, I really recommend that you check out RevenueCat, because they offer quite a complete solution to help you succeed at monetizing your app. So once again, I have a big thank you for RevenueCat for sponsoring this live stream. And now let's get into the topic. Let's have a look at ChatGPT in Xcode 26. So I'm running Xcode 26 beta 2, and I'm also running macOS 26 beta, so macOS Taue. It's important that you also run the new macOS, otherwise you will not have access to this little panel here, which is, well, where the ChatGPT conversations live. So to say it otherwise, if you don't also install the latest macOS, you can't test all of the AI features, including the ChatGPT integration. So let's get started. Right now, I just have a blank project. So I created a new project in Xcode and I stopped there. You can see I created today just before the live stream. And what I want to do is to try and implement a basic app to get started. So it's gonna be a quiz app because it's something that's quite simple, but still also leaves some room for subtleties around the business logic, around computing scores, about computing, dealing with possible errors, about some potential edge cases. So we'll see how ChatGPT will be able to handle it. And my goal will be ideally to not write any code myself, but only ask ChatGPT to write correct and refactor code for me. And we'll start by one of the nice features of ChatGPT in Xcode, which is that ChatGPT can handle images. So I went into Freeform before the live stream and I did this beautiful mockup. I was really glad because I got to use the Apple Pencil I bought for my iPad. And it's not an object that I use regularly, so I'm always very glad when I get to actually use it. So I drew this mock-up of an app where you have a question being asked, then 3 possible questions, and then a button to validate the answer. That's the screen to answer one question. And so I'm gonna give it to ChatGPT, and I'm gonna ask it to generate the basic code for an app that would implement this with some mock data. And we'll see how it goes, because in my test, I often had errors from Xcode about handling images, and it really seemed to be errors like on Xcode side, not on ChatGPT's side. So we'll see how it goes. I'm like crossing my fingers that during the live stream it will go better. I assume it's a bug that will be fixed like by Xcode by the time of the final release, but we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to attach my image. So my image is here. So I'm gonna attach it. And then I'm going to write a message. So I'm gonna say, write the basic structure of the app shown in the attached mockup. It's a quiz app. Just trying to say that in case it's not able to infer the quiz app from my beautiful drawing. I'm going to copy the prompt just in case something goes wrong and I can redo it quickly this way. And then I'm going to hit return. It seems I'm lucky and it works way better than the other day when I had errors, because errors, it was failing immediately. So here it's thinking, so that's great. All right, so it said it will update the content view, and you can see it if you click. Well, the file is already open, but there are links here from the conversation to the editor. It's going to add a question area at the top, 3 answer choices, A, B, C as buttons or selectable rows, a validate button at the bottom. This will be a basic static quiz layout ready for dynamic data later. So here it's showing the changes, and it's only showing the diff of what it's changing, or at least the beginning of the diff. And when I click on it, you see, when I click on it, it's highlighting. It's annoying that it doesn't stay highlighted because I don't have time to see everything, but it's highlighting the parts that are being modified. Okay. So let's see. It added the selected option as a string. So maybe the ID. Maybe we'll see that there are better ways to handle this. Then we have the question, what's the capital of France? Options, Paris, London, or Rome. And then we have the view. So what I'm gonna do is simply try and show a preview, and let's see what the preview looks like. I mean, the preview looks kind of good. So like, if I show you again my beautiful mockup, you can see that it seems perfectly on par. So that's great. You can sketch something even horribly in Freeform and then use it in the tool and it works. So they didn't lie in the WWDC session. So I'm really happy that it worked. And now let's see what happens if I interact. So I can click on the buttons, and then if I validate a good answer, okay, nothing happens. Okay, when you do, so there are buttons here, these ones, and then the validate button. Okay, there is no validation logic for now. So that's what we will try to tackle next, even though before we do, oh, it's nice. I really liked, so that's, I didn't expect it to do that, because when I tested, I'm doing the live stream on a larger screen than when I did my test. And you can see that oh no. Okay, see, maybe it was a bug. I was like, it's kind of nice that it made the preview much smaller, because when I open the conversation tab, I care more about the conversation and the code than the preview, arguably. So I was like, that's a nice feature, but turns out it was literally a bug and not a feature. Okay. Well, never mind. That's the joy of testing these features early on. So is there room for refactoring? So let me hide the preview. So here, this will be able to improve it later on. For example, I want to see what it stores for the selected option, but typically here, using UUIDs would definitely be better. So let's see that. Yeah, it's the ID. So I think we can definitely improve on that. And I see a message in the chat. Let's see. Did anyone have problem updating to TAOE macOS 26 and then Apple Intelligence not working where it was stuck downloading? I think it happened to me the first time, and I think I just like restarted or rebooted, and then it worked from there. But I do remember having some troubles, and also like my MacBook was in French initially, and I had to like switch it to English, and also I had to switch like Siri to English. And it can be tricky because typically I have iCloud Sync, and at some point, because Siri was in French on my phone, like I couldn't have it in English on the Mac and in French on the phone, and I had to set everything to English, otherwise they would like, it would revert back to French. So there might be some issues around that, but hopefully like rebooting could help you. There is a second beta of TAOE also. At least if I can share something, is that once I got this issue sorted, there were no more issues afterwards. So the beta is quite stable, except for like some software where the UI can have a few issues, but it's stable except for like some very specific software. So let's see, I'm going to ask it. So you know what? I don't want to say like use UUID for the ID of the options. I'm gonna say like, first, let's introduce a type for the questions and the options rather than using strings and tuples. There is nothing wrong with using strings and tuples. Like it's perfectly good option for prototyping. So I'm glad that actually the AI did that rather than generating a ton of like extra types. But here I think it's better if we do that first. So let's do it. All right. Quiz option and quiz question. Okay. So now we have quiz option, quiz question. Okay. Optionally add correct answer info later. Yes, that's a good point. All right. So let's stay like that for now. And indeed, since it uses the ID for both the ABC and then the UUID, maybe keeping ABC is better. In this case, I will suggest that it uses like an enum rather than an ID, which is just a string. I want to see if I can ask it to move this to its own file. So can you move the two new types to their own files? I don't know if it can do that actually. It seems it can create files. It left a command here, so that I will want to remove. But yeah, so it's able to create files. Okay, that's kind of nice. That's really, really nice. And like creating these files is definitely one of the tools that ChatGPT can invoke on Xcode. I plan to do a video like later on how the network communication actually works between like Xcode and ChatGPT, and what prompts do Xcode like gives to what prompt is used by Xcode to wrap my instructions, and then what does ChatGPT answer back, because ChatGPT doesn't answer directly like with what's displayed here. There is like an intermediary representation, so that will be for later. But I'm glad to see you can create files and it works well. All right, so now I'm gonna say, so for quiz option, so for quiz option, oh, you know what, actually I'm gonna go just here in quiz option. I'm gonna try to do the thing where, so I select it here, and then you see here I have the coding tool, and I'm going to say let's use an enum to make the ID property more type. The hard part is the writing without typos. All those small typos, they don't matter that much most of the time. How you say, let's hope they have rules like Cursor has to guide it to your wishes. That's a good point. I'm not sure that there is support for these custom like rules, which are like these custom rules. If I get it correctly in Cursor, they are kind of like rules that you can inject in the like system prompt or master prompt that Xcode adds. around your instructions. I don't think there is this feature for now. Maybe it will be introduced later. I guess maybe compared to Cursor, Apple, I'm sure that they have tried to like tighten it a bit more so that there is less chance for the model in Xcode to do weird things that Apple like wouldn't approve of. So might be a reason why they might not give as much control as Cursor. But I agree with you. I've seen people like do like crazy stuff with the rules on Cursor. So I hope that we will have some level of customization than this one size fits all first like version of the feature. So what did it do? And if I go here, I can see what it did. So it introduced an enum with A, B, C, D. Okay, and then we have quiz option ID here. And so the enum, it's string-based, identifiable, equatable, hashable, codable, so everything. Can it resolve error correctly? We'll give it a try. I gave it some tests also on my end. It's like when the errors are simple enough, it does quite well. When the errors are more complex and they require like a lot of context, it can be hit and miss. Typically, stuff that's around SwiftUI can also be very hit and miss. So that's a good thing that you ask it. If there is an error, I will not try to fix it myself. As I said, I will try to write as less code manually as possible. Up until now, I haven't needed to write any code manually. So we'll see how it goes. But thank you for reminding me of that. I will try to give it a test. Okay, so that's great. Let's keep A, B, C, D for now, because this way we'll also be able to deal with questions with like 3 or 4 answers. So that will make it interesting because it will create like edge cases for the AI to handle. Okay, so that's pretty good. Oh, you can see we have errors here. Well, that seems like a perfect time to use. So here, that's the fix me it suggested. But then it needs to be given a default value. So let's see what the AI fix me will do. So I'm doing it. So here you can see that it has it gave it some project context and search terms. I think this is what ChatGPT asks Xcode to search for and give him or it the definition of the types. So what's interesting is that it seems to have fixed the 3 errors at the same time, and the fix is much better than the one that was done by the fix me in Xcode. So here ABC, that's great. That's great. We could have several option A with this approach, so it's not perfect to be honest, but it's better than just using like strings where it could just be any value. And here, so I had this error a few times with when I was doing my test, that the view generated are too complex for the compiler. So let's see. We'll try to also fix this one with AI. I love when it says like this error is common when the Swift compiler encounters an initializer with generics or associated types. It's not being too like, it would have been funny if it had said like this is an error that Xcode can never handle or something that was way more sassy. But the master prompt, I think, like prevents this kind of things. But it would be fun to try and override the master prompt to make it like super sassy about what Xcode cannot do well, what the Swift compiler cannot do well. So what did it do here? It created this option. So it like, what did it do? Yeah, instead of having just the selected option, it created here a quiz question. So essentially like, yeah, what it did here isn't great. And I don't think it made a lot of change that improved, because why did it create this thing? It's just like added this, but we still have the selected option. So for example, if I comment this out, and here, oh no, so like the quiz question, we had everything in one variable. It tried to split it into several like variables. Yeah, I don't think it's a great approach. So it's interesting because like in a row, we had one situation where the fix me works quite well, the AI fix me, another where it failed completely. So here I'm actually gonna try to tell it, can you try to refactor the body of the view into several sub views, and I'm gonna say use computed properties. Let's see what it's gonna do. By the way, you have some options here. So this one, what you can do with these options. So one of these is that I want to, yes, okay, it's written in small. It says don't automatically apply code changes. So you can see that it automatically applied the changes. You can disable that if you want. And the other one is don't automatically search for project context. So here, I guess, I mean, this one, if it starts to do like bad things, you might want to disable it to give yourself more like time to check. And this one could be useful, like people who are, I guess, if you have a project where like you want to give explicit permission before you send project data to ChatGPT. Even though if this is a concern, honestly, I would advise not using ChatGPT to begin with, because that doesn't seem like something like, I mean, you don't want like very like secret things to hinge on someone clicking yes or no on a prompt during a coding session. So here, question area, okay. And so here it seems that the error is around the question and options. It's funny because like, I think during the past year, when preparing videos or making apps for videos, I never had this issue of like, the compiler is unable to type check this expression. So I hadn't seen this since I started using AI generated code. So here, what if I just add some explicit like typing option like this? I don't know if it could help. Okay, and maybe it will be interesting because once this will be fixed here, maybe the other error will go away, even if I remove like the type information. Sometimes it happens that because there is an error inside inside of the view, then it causes the type checker to time out. So here, no exact match. Why? Oh, it's because, so this is a string, but I guess we want the raw value here. Yes. So it did not make that change when I asked it to transform. It's interesting because you see, when I asked it to make the change, let's remember, when I asked it to change here, to create the quiz option ID type, it didn't update, it seems, the view that used it. So it seems to suggest that like ChatGPT is not omniscient at the project level. And so now that I have added this information, can I remove this? Yes, I can. Okay. Okay. Let's see if now I show the preview. Will the preview work? Okay, so what's the capital of France? It's working like before. Okay. So now let's try to add some logic so that when you click on validate, first thing, what happens if no questions are selected? Is there a way to like relaunch it? Okay, I would like the button to be disabled if no answer has been selected yet. So let's try and do that. So I'm gonna go here. You can see I can access previous conversations here. And I'm trying to see if I do add content for project, I can say, I can do like add content view to attach the content view. Okay, so I can add things so that I can say exactly when I write content view, I give more context that it's actually like the name of a type. So for a small project, I think it might not make too much of a difference, but for a larger project, might be useful. This might also be a mess for a large project with like a lot of types available. Okay, so in at content view, I want the validate button to be disabled when no answers have been selected. I was trying to wonder if I could have written the code in less time it took me to write the prompt and wait for it to compile, since it's just adding a disabled modifier. So let's see. If I click, it shows me where it made the change. Okay. So that one was done perfectly well. All right. Perfect. Now let's add the logic to validate the answer. If when tapping on validate, we will, so doing shift return to get to a new line, we will highlight in green the correct answer. If an incorrect answer was selected, highlight it in red. So you see that there is a bit of a business logic that is still simple, but not completely trivial to implement, because there will always be a green answer, but there might not always be an answer to highlight in red. And then show a text below the answers that indicates whether the answer was correct or not. I'm really looking forward to see if it's going to do something that's like super fun, like you've answered correctly with some nice thing, or if it will just be like correct or false, and then I need to ask it, like make it more festive. So let's go with that, and let's see what it's going to output. You can see it's making a plan before generating the code, and that I will also cover it when I will look at like the system prompt that Xcode uses. But this is on purpose, because asking like ChatGPT to make a plan before like generating the code helps it generate better code, because by the time it gets to generating the code, the plan is part of, like, you know, that ChatGPT basically like the prompt and the partial answer is fed to it back again every time it generates a new token. And so by generating the plan beforehand, then it's able to stick to that plan when generating the code, and that improves the quality of the results. So what's the plan? Add state to track if the user has validated and whether the answer was correct. Highlight the correct answer in green after validation. If an incorrect answer was selected, highlight it in red after validation. Show a message feedback, correct in green or incorrect in red. There is an exclamation mark, so it's a bit festive. You can see that we do need state, because for now we did not have the information of whether the answer was correct. We know that it's Paris, the capital of France, but it was not indicated anywhere in the data model. So to do this, it will add an add state property, did validate and is correct. So here to check, okay. Compute property to get the correct option, that seems right. Update the options area to change the background and border color for each answer after validation. Show a feedback message below the answers if validation has occurred. Update the validate button action to set the validation state. Okay. I would really like to see it and stay updated, like what changed, so that I can review the file. You know what? Next time I will disable this so that I can see what happens. If it shows like, just like in cursor, do you want to accept the answer or not with the diff in the file, it could be nice. So it added did validate and is correct, okay. Correct option, so it's a compute property. It's the first question. Oh, so it did it only for this question. So I will need to ask it to refactor to add a correct state to a quiz question. Would you consider a video about testing and playing with foundation models? I'm also planning to do that. There are so many ideas these days, but actually the first time when I prepared this live stream, I then turned the quiz app into an app that uses the foundation models, and there are some very interesting like learning, including the fact that the foundation models are meant more for deterministic usage than for creative usage. So definitely one of the videos I want to do, ideally in July, maybe in August, we'll see, but definitely a video I want to do. Thank you for confirming that it's indeed a good idea for a future video. Okay, so here we'll need to refactor the state because we plan to have more than one question in our quiz app eventually. So the question area, so now what changed? So the options area, now there is a background here that was added. So if did validate an option equal correct option is green. If did validate an option equals selected option and option is not correct, it's red. So you see, that's the kind of logic that if you ask to do it on a technical test with a bit of like time pressure, it's easy to get it wrong. So it seems correct. We'll see if it's actually working as intended. And then otherwise, so if it's just selected, then it's a bit different. It's the accent color, and then otherwise it's just system gray. All right, the overlay is the same thing, but for the the stroke. I was looking for the word, but it's here. Okay, and then validate button. So validate set to true is correct whether. So interestingly, like here, this looks like it could be computed dynamically. Plus is correct is not even an optional. So here, I think this can be computed dynamically. So I will also ask it to try and refactor this. Let's try to validate the correct answer. Correct. That's good. And then a bad answer. Okay, it's also good. So let's try a few things. So first thing, I will be like, it seems that, can I do at is, no, I can't do at is correct. Like the finer granularity seems to be the type. It seems that is correct could be a computed property. And as you can see, I disabled this time automatically applying the result to see what it does, because I did not test this option beforehand. So I'm curious to see what it's gonna do. Oh, it seems, okay, we have a bug. So Xcode is currently beach bowling and my MacBook Pro is getting quite hot, actually. So it's interesting, it's getting quite hot because like it's not doing, I mean, it's using ChatGPT, so it's not doing like AI on the device, but maybe it's doing a bit of AI on the device because like my MacBook Pro, like the fans started to turn on for a few seconds. Might just be that there was like an issue in Xcode and Xcode started to like take like 100% of the CPU. I'm glad it didn't cut the live stream. So let's see now what appeared. So yes, you're absolutely correct. Is correct can be computed rather than an explicit at state variable. Why make is correct a computed property? Is correct simply checks if the current selected option matches the correct answer. It does not need to store any value. It only needs to reflect the current state. Making it computed eliminates redundancy and the risk of the state becoming out of sync with selected option or the question. So it just did. Okay. So now it didn't apply automatically. So I still have here the is correct, and when I click on it, then I can do copy snippets. Okay, so then I need to paste it. So here, I'm a bit disappointed that there isn't an option to say like apply it automatically. Like this is disappointing, to be honest. Compared to Cursor, where it shows you can both like accept or reject a change in the conversation, but also you see a diff like in the editor. Compared to Cursor, this is a bit disappointing, to be honest, given that like you have Cursor that already does this UI, Alex sidebar also like does it. So that's disappointing. I hope it will come eventually, because I mean, in a real use case, most of the time you will want to like maybe give yourself like a room to check that the result is what you want. And here it seems that either you have a good UX, but you accept everything immediately, or you have like, sorry about that. You have like a really frustrating UX because now I need to copy. I need to figure out where in the code I need to paste. Like that's that's terrible. It's not agreeable to use. It's not satisfying to use. Plus, I mean, Xcode knows where the diff is in the file, so it could do it. Oh, wait. I didn't see there was something here. I've been ranting, so let's be fair. If I've been ranting about a feature and only noticed the feature was there after ranting, it's probably that the feature was not highlighted well enough. But it seems that if I click here, okay, no. So if I do that, it's just to share feedback if I'm happy or not about the result. So that's not that. But it did ask, would you like me to update? So having this just below this message is very confusing. So it's like not the best UX. And if I say yes, but I still left like the automatic applying disable, what's it going to do? So now I have this proposal. And so now I can like apply it or not. I can click on apply. Okay, so at least there is something to apply automatically. The fact that I had to do it in like 2 calls, I don't really understand the logic of it, to be honest. It seems that the second call like didn't like add anything more. So it would have been nice to have everything in one message. I would have expected to be. And also like you saw like the big like UI it showed, it would have been so much nicer to have it shown like in line with like the removal and the addition shown in line. I'm pretty sure that like Xcode can do that because you have, when you do like a diff with Git, you do have the UI to show like additions and deletions. So I hope it will get better. But it's a bit sad that we didn't have like this level of polish on the initial feature, especially like when you consider that they were already planning to do Swift Assist last year. So they must have started to write some code around this already last year. And you said something interesting. It looks like it's not using button style and button border shape for buttons. Maybe because of all training data on ChatGPT. Yes, that could be one of my concerns, that it uses like old APIs because of training. I know that in the master prompt that Apple adds, there are specific like instructions like use concurrency and async await by default rather than dispatch and combine. So like there are some like guidelines on which API it should use by default, but yeah, it's ChatGPT. So basically, all of the issues with ChatGPT not being aware of the latest APIs are going to also like happen here. And I'm also not sure, like when you send a message to ChatGPT, I'm not sure if Xcode sends it what is the minimum supported version of your app, because that seems like an important information for the code that it needs to generate. Because here, yeah, it created like shapes. So it could have done like button border shape probably. Maybe also that unless you ask it explicitly, it will not create like extra, it will try to use the simplest API, even though if it's not the most like idiomatic ones. Okay. I'm gonna re-enable the automatic applying of the changes. And what did I want to do next? Next, I wanted to... So first let's check if it still works. Okay, it still works. There was one more thing I wanted to do was, yes, to store like, okay. Now let's store which answer or which option is correct in the data model itself. You can see I'm trying not to be like too descriptive. I'm trying to be very like high level, like let's store it in a data model, than saying more specifically what I want, just to see what it's gonna do with this instruction and if it can infer correctly what I want. So add a correct option ID to quiz question. So what did it do here? So correct option ID. So it's good to do that because it reuses the IDs. So that's kind of good. So here you need to do which one is correct. The problem when you do that is that, well, you could mismatch things. You could give an ID that doesn't exist. So I think having an is core, I mean, there are two. It's interesting because if you do an is correct in the quiz option, then you have the problem that there could be more than one correct answer. And if you do it here, you have unicity of correctness, but it might not be an ID that actually exists. So I'm gonna try and ask ChatGPT if it can find for a way to solve for this, because like top of mind, I don't have something that comes up for this. So let's see what it's going to answer. But first, let's see if there are some changes we made in the content view also. No, Bill succeeded. Let's just check that the answer is still the good one. Okay, still Paris. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna try and describe it. So it seems that it's possible to set an ID, a correct ID that isn't used by any of the option. Could we refactor the data model to make that situation impossible? I'm curious to see what it's gonna answer. If I were to do it, I guess I would do something like, I'm not sure how I would do it actually. So what did it do? You see, it generated code from the get-go, which might not be the best of things. And here it added a force unwrap. So the quiz question initializer is now failable. Okay, so now the initializer can fail. So basically, it's added probably like a pre-check here, yeah, a guard statement. Okay, I'm gonna say, is there a way to do it without the failable initializer? And if you see a way to do it, please let me know in the chat, because I'm trying to think about it at the same time, but rather than a precondition or an assert, how could we ensure that there is only one correct answer and that it's the one and that it's one of the questions also? How could we do that? Because I mean, one way to do it would be to get rid of the array and say, okay, we can have only like A, B, C, D questions. They could be optional. B, C, and you could make like C and D like optional, and then yeah, but then the correctness. Now it's also tricky. It's also tricky. I guess a way to do it would be to define like you could always define data model, like a data model for when you have 2 questions, one when you have 3 questions, when you have 4 questions, and because you already know ahead of time how many questions there are, you can make it so that everything is statically typed and there is no dynamism, because it's the dynamism part that makes the error that you could give an ID for the correct question which isn't used in the like the ID of the correct option might not be used by the options provided. That's because you have like a dynamic number of options that this is possible. So here now it's doing you can trigger a runtime error, but no, that's not super useful. But let's see if I can actually reset the code. I wanted to see if I could reset the code to like here, but it seems that checkpoints, I don't think that there are checkpoints. What does this little thing here do? So you need to use Git for that. So unlike Cursor, there are no checkpoints to reset your code to a previous state, or if there is, I haven't found it. It's well hidden. So that's kind of, I mean, that forces you to use like Git alongside. So not the best because the checkpoints as lightweight Git commits can be quite useful. Because here, for example, I'm like, okay, yeah, I went too far and I would just like to to simplify things, but I don't really have a way to do it except than going into the file here and doing Command Z, but then I need to do maybe the same thing also like here. So the fact that there are no like checkpoints, honestly, it's a bit like frustrating. I've also realized that I forgot to set, when I show a comment on the live stream, it stays on forever automatically. I'm just trying to see if I can set that. I think there is a timer for that. I'm looking at my settings super quick. Yes, I forgot to check the box that says automatically hide comments overlays after 15 seconds. So sorry if you had the comment that stayed for quite some time. Okay, let's keep going. What do we have next? So next, oh yes, I wanted to ask it like, I don't know, like the correct or incorrect to do something a bit creative, like to add some like animations or whatever. So I'm gonna start a new conversation. I'm gonna be like, in content view, can you add some visual effects when showing if the answer is correct or not? It's starting to rain quite a lot, so I'm hearing it on my window. I hope like it's not like polluting the sound too much, but it's starting to rain quite a lot. We might have a storm because it was super hot for like several days, so we might have a storm incoming. All right, in content view, you can add some visual effects when showing if the answer is correct or not. Okay. So it's doing like scale effect and stuff like that. So let's see. So if is correct, then it shows a feedback effect. And else, so it does a different one. So let's see what it's gonna do. Let's just run the code. So first with correct. Okay, so it's made the correct like grow a bit. And now if I do something that's incorrect, okay, it moved a bit. So that's kind of nice. That's kind of nice. I'm wondering, like, honestly, I would like to see if it could add like something more like visual, like I don't know. Like, there is something called timeline view in SwiftUI. So, for example, can you make a nice? Can you also add a nice animation using timeline view? I'm not even sure if it's called timeline view. You know what? I'm just checking. Like, yeah, it's timeline view. Here, I'm curious if it's just going to go crazy and say, like, I have no idea how to do that. But as someone who's not a designer and who is not super familiar like with this kind of code, having like just a basis written for you could be interesting. So we have the animated feedback background here. So it's a timeline view. And then, so in the context, we show some like ellipses. So let's see what it's going to do. It says so when feedback appears, oh, great idea, like adding a countdown timer. That's a great idea. And then it would show like too late. We'll ask it to do that also because it involves like adding like dynamic state that's managed on the device. So we'll definitely ask it to do that. So when feedback appears, the softly shimmering wavy ellipse background animates in real time behind the correct or incorrect message. The animation uses green tones for correct answers and red for incorrect ones. All your previous feedback effects, scale, bounce, and shake, are preserved on the text itself. So let's see. That's kind of ugly, but at least it works. I mean, it builds at least. So it's not the best. It's not the best, but like it's a basis. It's a basis. And if I ask it like, if I'm like, what if I want to like, so here I can click on this, but I don't know what it does. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, the UX doesn't feel like super like polished because when I click on show all changes, I mean, show all changes, I would expect it to maybe highlight the changes in the file, but doesn't even do that. And if I say like, roll it back, does it at least do that? Since I don't have checkpoints. Okay, so it rolled back the code. Okay, so now let's try to add a timer. Great suggestion. So let's add a timer. Let's add a timer with a time limit of 10 seconds to answer. Not too fast, because otherwise, like, I don't have time to explain our comments on top of showing the feature. When the timer runs out, I'm going to give 2 business rules. If an answer was selected, it gets validated, in the sense that we won't fail someone because they didn't tap on validate. If no answer was selected, we display a too late message. I'm going to say just like the correct and incorrect messages. All right. And I see a few new people have joined the chat. Welcome. Please don't hesitate to share any questions that you have or anything related to ChatGPT in Xcode 26 or the new AI features in Xcode 26 in general. So let's see. How much business logic, code logic, and ChatGPT cover on prompts? Is AI good enough to replace junior level developer or intern level? Like, we've seen that the suggestions themselves are not bad. The integration in Xcode could be better. About replacing people, honestly, it's kind of hard for me to answer, in the sense that I don't work in the kind of company that rely a lot on a very junior workforce. So me, I see it more as it enables like senior engineers to do things even either faster or to cover more ground. So I see it as like something very like positive, in the sense that at my job I've been able to cover like topics that were outside of my main area of expertise rather. And if I had tried to do it without AI, I would have like been way more tired than doing it with AI. So that's really nice. But about replacing, honestly, I don't have a strong opinion on it. Just the answer I can always give is that the best way to make sure that you don't get replaced by anything is to have a very deep understanding of the technology. So if you have a deep knowledge of how SwiftUI works under the hood, of how the layout system works, how Swift works at scale, how to architecture projects in Swift, that will pay dividends, because you will be able to use the AI tools way better, because you will know how to prompt them better, you will know how to control the results better, you will know how to debug the issues better. So that would be like my answer. Like, when you have like an AI that seems to be able to do more and more of the basic stuff, one way to answer that is by getting like really good at the part that the AI cannot like understand super well, at least for now. Okay, so it seems that while I was speaking, we reached the end of the countdown, so we were able to like see the feature happen. So it says time left 9 seconds, 8 seconds, 6 seconds, 5 seconds. Amazing. And what are the changes? So it's creating a timer, schedule timer. Okay. Time remaining. It's decreasing every minute. Okay. I know there are better APIs to handle timers. I remember seeing a few articles about this recently. Right. And then it's too late. Oh, but yeah, you can. So if you click, it resets. And see what happens if I have an option selected. Incorrect. All right. So there might be some small issues, but it's more linked to the fact that we don't handle like multiple questions for now. Okay, but that seems to be quite good, to be honest. What did I want to do? Yes, I wanted to try something. Is that I discovered recently that there is a modifier in SwiftUI when you want to animate text that decreases, and it does that beautifully. So I will say that. I will say like, I know there's a modifier in SwiftUI to animate a countdown. Can you use it? And let's see what it's gonna do. Numeric text transition. That I was about to start a Google search. So I'm really happy to see that it did find the correct modifier. So what did it change? Or maybe it just made it up and it's not that. Maybe it made it up actually. So you know what? I'm gonna do my little like Google search. So I'm gonna be like SwiftUI text animation for number. So what's the modifier? It's content transition numeric text. So it completely hallucinated the answer, even though there is actually a modifier. So is ChatGPT in Xcode better than regular ChatGPT at SwiftUI? The answer is no. I'm gonna ask it like, are you sure this modifier exists? Also, I'm a bit sad because in Cursor now, when it generates code and build, it's able to pick up on that signal and try to fix the error. So a bit of an like agentic approach. And here it's not the case. But maybe actually here there is this thing here. So what does this button do? Because it seems linked to the errors. Don't automatically include project's errors. So it's telling it about all of the project errors. So it knows that there are errors. No, numeric transition doesn't exist. I'm gonna be like, are you sure it's not content transition? Yes, so Xcode 15 seems to be correct. For some reason, it decided like not to apply the code by default. Would you like me to update? Yes. I think it's the first time I'm hearing the fans of my MacBook Pro, and it's the first time I hear them since I've bought it. Seems that Xcode plus live streaming seems to be like a lot for it. Okay. So seems to be better. Okay. So it's kind of nice, but there is one mode. There is one like specific thing that you can do when you're doing a countdown. Yes, it's the argument counts down. So I'm gonna ask it like, is there a way for it to look like a countdown? Damn, the rain is getting more intense. I don't know if you can hear it, but the rain on my like Windows is getting more intense. But it's a good thing because it was really hot this past day. So like, if it can cool down temperature a bit, I'm all for it. So to look like a countdown, because if I look at the numbers you can see, yeah, they're going up. Come down with the numbers, and I'm sure it's going to do like a crazy code of animations when it just literally needs to set the parameter countdown to true. And it's no longer applying changes automatically also. Yeah, transition, move to edge. It's trying to do all of these things which are not needed. You just need to do countdown true. So the integration of ChatGPT in Xcode is not going to replace developers immediately. And now you can see we have a beautiful countdown. Let's try to see it again. Beautiful. Just when it goes from 10 to like 9, it kind of like feels like it's not the most beautiful stuff, but that's because 10 only gets shown for like a few seconds, or not even a few seconds, only a single second. If I go into the timer creation, you see, one thing that's interesting is that, so here we have this value of 10 for time remaining, So time remaining 10, you see it's created like 3 times. So for example, if I say, can we create a constant for the... No, there is one value, I mean, the value will change over time, but the starting value should be a constant for the length of the timer. You really want to like ask it, maybe just like as a good practice, asking it to improve the quality of the code by as a default is a good practice. I've introduced a constant, the timer length, so here and here, okay. Well, why didn't it use it here? Oh, maybe because since it's not static, like using it here, I mean, you would, yeah, because it needs to be static. So I'm gonna be like, why not use it when initializing the property at the declaration site? Because it would have to be static. Let's see if we can fix that. So the workaround, use a literal, okay. It's suggesting to do something like crazy like this. Summary, you must use a literal for state property initialization. Okay, but let me just check before like I start to like tell it how much it sucks. But if you do that, and then you do that, and then that, yeah, that builds. And then here, of course, you need to also say content view, but okay, so it does build. And if I say it, are you sure there isn't a simpler solution? I feel like I'm a teacher trying to help a student answer. It knows about static, so I'm gonna be like, but why not make the constant static? Yes, you need to use a type instead of self, yes. Yes. Yes, make the change. I don't know why it was like overly cautious on that. Maybe because I don't know, just an hypothesis, but because static can like lead to like singletons, it's being cautious not to like create singletons. But yeah, so here it's static, here and here, okay. It builds, and so this time if I want to put, for example, 15. Do I like the liquid glass design? I've only seen it on macOS. I haven't installed the beta on my phone. So like on macOS, I mean, it feels less of a change than it will be on iOS. To be honest, just because like macOS apps, they tend to be like less visual. I would say like you have your web browser that you use a lot, and then it's apps like Mail and stuff like that. So it's not like an app with like it's less apps with like beautiful visual and things like that. So honestly, I didn't feel the liquid glass part a lot. It felt more like, yes, there are changes on the UI. Some apps like Mail, for example, looks way more like their iPad counterparts. But it didn't feel like such a big change, to be honest. But I think it's on iOS and iPadOS there is way more room like for big changes. And also, besides the Apple apps, the other apps, they likely haven't had the time yet to adopt like liquid glass. But I'm really curious to try it on iOS. Just like I have several like Macs, but I have only like one phone, and updating your iPhone can be a bit tricky. Like, for example, some banking apps, they might not offer all of the features on betas, and it can be a bit annoying. So let me relaunch the preview because I want to see the transition from like 10 to 9, if it's as bad looking as it felt. Yeah, no, like it's not as bad. You might want to have like still keep the width constant, but otherwise it's kind of okay. All right, what can we do next? Let me see. It's been 1 hour. I think I want to do something like an hour and a half for this live stream. So let's see what we could do. Let's try to add, to handle more questions. So we will start a new chat and I will be like, okay, now I want to handle more questions. Create a mocked data model with 3 questions. Handle the transition between questions. When all questions have been answered, show a global score. So I'm asking a few things. We'll see how it's able to manage that. Here I've asked for quite a few things in one prompt. So now we have all of the quiz questions. Questions are extremely basic. Then we have a function process validation, reset for next question. So it's setting the properties back to their initial values. Might be interesting to actually, instead of doing that, have some kind of like struct that you recreate from scratch, because here like lots of mistakes to forget something, especially as you like as the view evolves over time. So validate as the process validation. Timer also as the process validation when there are no validations, when there are no selected options, and then process validation. So if correct score plus equal 1, if it's the last question, quiz finished, stop timer. Otherwise, reset for next question, start timer, okay. Reset for next question, it does the... I was like, when do we set the next question? Oh yes, current question index plus equal 1, okay. And then a restart button. All right, so let's see how it plays. So capital of France, Paris. What is 2 plus 2? 4. Correct. Which planet is known as the red planet? Mars. Who is finished? Okay. So it's quite good. Honestly, it's quite good. The only thing is that the fact that the time left is shown above, I'm going to ask it to show it like below the... I like it's visible here, but I don't like the fact that it jumps at the end. I'm going to be like, can we show the timer below the options? Trying also to ask it something that is not directly linked to what it did just before. Let's see. It's been 1 hour that we've been doing that. I'm wondering if like I think I could have gotten to the same like place if I had like written the code myself. What I did like is that when it created like the basic structure, typically like basic structure for views, I think it's super useful to have it like laid out for you. But then it could have gone faster if I had written the code myself. Okay, it's where I wanted it. Would you use ChatGPT in your work? I've seen a friend of mine creating simple apps, but the generated code was too bad. So yeah, you want to be able to tell good generation from bad generation. That's for sure. And then I mean, I would give it a try, see if it makes you like productive, and try to not have any like predetermined idea. Like if it makes you like work faster, that's great. If it doesn't work, that's not great, and you can just like drop it. Just one thing is that comparing like ChatGPT in Xcode versus Cursor cursor, the drawback is that you need to go back to Xcode to build and add the new files to your project, even though there might even be ways around that now. But like the experience in Cursor, the UX seems way better than what we have in Xcode for now. And since you can select in Cursor the models, you could like use the same ChatGPT model if you wanted, or you could use like Claude Sonnet. So to be honest, I think I would still recommend like going with Cursor for any like heavy usage, because the experience just like feels better on Cursor. The one thing I do like on Xcode and I don't have on Cursor is that in Xcode, the conversation is on the left. And I think it makes way more sense to have the conversation which drives the editor on the left of the editor than rather than the other way around. Cursor has the conversation of the right. And I feel it's weird because we read left to right. So just like when you have the master detail view, which is now called the split view in iPadOS, you have the selection on the left and then the content on the right. I think it makes sense to have like what drives the content to the leftmost, because we read left to right. That's the only thing I like in the Xcode integration over Cursor for now. So what did it do? So okay, so it's showing the timer, okay. And now I was like, I want to tell it. So the function that it created, which one was it? The function reset for next question looks error prone over time. Could we do better? What I want to hint at is that it would be better if it could create some kind of struct that encapsulated all of that state with default values, and then you would just recreate a new instance of that struct. Could we do better? Create a struct, that looks good. Replace addState variable, each addState variable with a field inside this property. Simply assign a new one. Okay, so it seems to be doing what I wanted. Okay. That looks pretty good. Let's build. It's still building. Does it still work? Incorrect. Right. Incorrect. Trying to get like 0 out of 3. That's also working. Okay. So that's kind of good. Now I'm going to ask it. I'm gonna tell it like move. Can we move stuff to their own file? I'm trying to be like super like vague. That's the worst prompt ever, but I'm trying to see what it's gonna do with it. So move question state. Move quiz question. You can break out UI subcomponents. Okay. So let's see what it's doing. So moving out question state makes total sense. Even though like here it's encapsulating, it's importing SwiftUI. I don't think you should do that in your data model. So that's kind of unfortunate that it does that. And then I want to see the changes to like question view. Okay, so we have this. Yeah, so this needs to move in the... So you know what? Let's try and do like an AI fix me. So if I go here, inaccessible. So let's try to just generate a fix. So moving it, okay, making it public, duplicating the constant, not ideal. I agree with that. So what did it do? It moved it to the top of the file. I mean, it does solve the issue. It's not the best way to do it. To be honest, I would be like, I would create like I would create the static value just like in this file. It's what makes the most sense. So like static let equal 15, and then it's gonna be like question state dot timer length. I'm sure we'll have also errors like here. So let's try to see if it can fix the error that it's no longer available in scope. Oh, look at that. It's adding a new property, even though we've just moved it just before. So it means that it wasn't able to ask like Xcode to search for timer length. Sorry. So it's a bit like disappointing because it just recreated the stuff, the constant with a different value. It was 15, now it's back to 10. So definitely like the AI fix me. I would recommend caution. I would recommend caution because it's like really, really not reliable. Let's hope it gets better over time. But here we're in a simple context where like there are literally like 5 files in the project. So when it's not able to do the fix in that context, you're like, ooh, I am not sure I trust it to be able to do it in a large project. Okay, is the app back to building? Let's see. Yes, we are back to building. All right. Well, that's pretty cool, to be honest. Trying to think if there were other things that I wanted to test, but I think I've covered most of what I wanted to show you. Let me know in the chat if you have like any like suggestions or ideas for things that I could test. Maybe one thing would be, oh yes, a writing test. Writing test. You know what? I'm gonna be like the worst person ever and be like, can you write some tests? Just that. I want to see what it does. Okay, it found data models as well as an existing test ChatGPT test.swift file. Yes. It uses Swift testing. Yes. It will add meaningful tests for the quiz logic, focusing on model correctness and the quiz session state. Since content views the UI view, I'll test the logic in the model struct and leave UI interaction test for a different test target. I add tests to validate quiz option ID and quiz option identity equality. Confirm quiz question returns the correct option. Test correct, incorrect answer detection with quiz session state. Okay. So what did it add? Guess I can just remove this, which was the default code. And so A1, okay, so it's testing. Let's just, you know what? Let's just like run the test and see what happens. I can see the thunder outside. We are getting a storm, definitely. It's starting the simulator. Let's see what's gonna happen. Since I hadn't booted the simulator during this live stream, it's taking a bit more time for it to boot. Let's wait a bit. Actually, I can show it. You can see it's still okay. It booted. So it says text test succeeded, but I don't see anything displayed. I'm just gonna do a product test. Testing. Okay. Might have been some kind of like UI bug. So this time, so the tests are passing, and let's see. So, I mean, it does add some tests for the data model. Good thing is that they use correct syntax for Swift testing. I'm not sure if it takes advantage of the fact that in Swift testing you can pass arguments to test function, because that here feels like something that could have like been useful. But at least, yeah, it's testing a few things. Not sure if it's the most like meaningful test. So it's testing like option 1 equal option 2, option 1 different than option 3. So it's testing the equality, but basically it's testing that like equatable, which is automatically generated, is correct. So that's kind of nice, but you could like trust that what's generated by the compiler is correct. So And here, yeah, it's testing that like when you do the first correct, you do get the right ID, but the problem is that there is nothing preventing me, like at runtime, there is nothing preventing me from doing here C and D in the data set at runtime. And then, of course, in the test, it would catch the failure. But if I do that at runtime, the test won't be able to catch it. Just want to make sure that it catches the error. It did catch the error, that's good. So it did generate some text. Hey Wilfred, nice to see you. Yeah, it's been like some time since the last live stream, but it's nice to test like, these new features in Xcode and see like how do they look like when you use them for real outside of the very controlled environment of a WWDC session. Here, for example, I'm glad to see that it's able to generate code that does use the syntax of Swift test, but here the tests are not meaningful. I mean, a tiny bit here around like the question state and the default value and the timer and things like that. But it's not the most meaningful test. Granted that there was no real like logic, like a view model that could have been tested easily in isolation. So it was not the best example, but I'm still glad to see that we do have like Swift testing tests which are correct, which is a far cry from what we could do last year with the predictive code completion. Can we count total time to solve the quiz? That's a great suggestion. Let's do that to finish. So I'm gonna start a new conversation. So in addition to the score, the final score, I also want to show how much time it took to answer each question. Let's see that. And we'll finish on that one. So it needs to track the time taken for each question as the user answers, store this time for each question in an array, display these times on the quiz results. So it's not even like aggregating everything, it's keeping like tracks for each question, which is valid, I would say. Interestingly, I want to see where it's adding. So question time is adding it here. It could have added it also in the question, like in question state, because it's where we have the time remaining. But question state, oh no, okay, so question session state is for one question. So actually, doing it here makes more sense. And so you have the start time that you also need to keep track on. So it's doing it. It could have just say how much time like was remaining and then do like start time minus remaining. Here it's doing more precisely than was shown on the screen. I see a few messages in the chat. So Wilfred, you're saying, at first iteration, ChatGPT is doing simple tests, but if you ask him to also perform corner case, it should perform pretty well, but I haven't tested with Xcode 26. Yeah, I'm sure just like what we've done at the beginning, when you like refine your prompt, it should be able to do what you want. One thing I would be curious to test, but here I don't really have the code for it, but actually, you know what? I could do it, is ask it to use like, you can, provide arguments to a test function and then provide values, and it tests like all of the like combinations. So I'll try to do that just after. And I see, Aldo, you're saying you've just joined. Just so you know, there will be a replay available as soon as the live is finished, so you will be able to watch what you have missed. So let's see how it's going to look like this added timer, but we keep track of the start time. Then in processation time taken, so timer length. Oh, interestingly, so here it does timer length minus time remaining. So it seems that the start time, is it using it somewhere? It's not using it anywhere. So you see, it literally generated here something that's not like, so you want to be careful because it can generate stuff that's like not needed at all. So you know what? I just want to see first if it builds. And then I'm gonna be like, well, do we actually need this variable? Because I think not. So let's see. London. Oh, incorrect. You want to speedrun, but you want to speedrun for correctness also. Okay. Okay, time taken for each question. All right. So first I will be like, do we actually need... You do not actually need it. I love how it says in your current implementation when it's actually it that created it. So yes, remove it from your implementation. And then I will ask it to only show like a global like time. It's interesting because here it generated the correct like feature, but also extra code that was essentially like dead code. And yeah, I do agree with you. The interface looks good. It's very simple, but still like quite like polished, and it looks nice. I mean, it looks like a nice demo project. So really like really good to see that, because doing something that looks good, even if it's the basic level of good, it can be more effort than what we think most of the time. And you're saying, Aldo, I joined mid-session, so you might have given this info already. To use ChatGPT feature, yeah, you need to update to Tawe. Otherwise, you simply don't have this like coding assistant like panel. And I was surprised at first because you rely on ChatGPT. So I was like, well, why do you need the new macOS? But I guess there are some features in the new macOS, in the OS itself, and not at the Xcode level, that must be like used. Like, I don't know, maybe it's like there are features to like be able to interact with the model in a more private way, like these kind of things. I'm not really sure what it is, but there is something in the OS that Xcode seems to need. Or maybe it was just like too complex to make it work in the previous macOS for just the beta period. I'm not really sure. Okay. The sound of the run is getting like much more intense for me. I will be super curious afterward to look at the replay and see if you can hear it in the mic or not. So I was like, okay, let's display only a global timer. So good question. Which model is used? I didn't set a specific model. I just set like my my ChatGPT account. I paid for a plus account, so the basic subscription, not the most like not the most expensive one. And I don't have any UI in Xcode to be able to pick one model over the other. So if there is a way to like switch, it's not obvious at all. So it's adding a new timer. No, it's not what I want. I want to just do the sum of the question times. You can see now it's taking a full timer from like when we started, but you don't need a timer for that. I mean, you could just do a diff between two dates. I'll be like, no, I meant just do the sum of the question times. So it can really go like in weird directions. So let's see. I want to see if it rolls back like it's quiz timer. Okay, it rolled it back. But the fact that you have to check that it rolled back makes me think that at some point you will make like you will make mistakes. Okay, let me give it a try one last time. But wait, but we lost the timer. We lost the timer for the questions. I'm like, we lost the timer for each question. Oh no, so we still have the timer, just it's not shown anymore, it seems. So it's just that it removed the time left. I'm not sure why it did that. But like, yeah, you really have to be like to be careful. You really have to be careful. I'm tiny bit disappointed. Okay, now it's back, and it kept the modifier that it didn't knew about. So I guess he didn't try to like generate it from scratch. It just like I guess it has access. No, not access to like the history, but we are still like in the context window of the model, so the model still remembers what was sent to it up to this point. All right. One last thing I wanted to do was to ask it to be so here. I'm gonna be like in at test ChatGPT, like yeah, this one. Can we leverage the fact that Swift testing can handle parameters in test functions? Yeah, I agree that overall, like generating like tests quickly using ChatGPT is one of the best like use case for it. Also, like when you want to also generate like mock data, for example, it's also like really good. And yeah, UI testing. So UI testing, you have the fact that since you need to have the app to run, I'm not sure if it would be able to generate good like UI tests just looking at the code. But maybe if you record a UI test and then you ask it to improve it or to make it more like modular could help. I feel with UI tests, also the fact that they take so long to execute is often like an issue also. But yeah, definitely like, and I'm sure there are people who have in their process like to have some kind of automation where like before like they do a commit, they check. They run like a command to ask the model to generate tests for their code. So yes, this is what I wanted to do. Just that you don't invoke it like that. You add like you add it in the test annotations. Yeah, so I think so. You can see that like it doesn't really know like as soon as you get into some like more specific features of Swift testing, like being able to handle parameterized test function, it's not able to do it because yes, that's correct, but then you pass the value using the @test annotation. I think I'm going to stop there because like there is so much rain pouring down my windows that like there is a lot of noise. It's really weird. So I think I'm going to stop here. 1 hour and a half. We've been over like I don't know if you can hear the amount of noise that there is, but for me it's like it's crazy the amount of noise I can hear right now. I think there is some kind of like I don't know how you say it in English. So let me search for the word in English. Yeah, there's some hail that's like falling, I think. So okay, there is no rain noise. That's amazing. That's like thanks to this mic. This mic does a great job at getting only like as the right pickup pattern. But like I think there was like some like hail stuff that was like falling on the window. It made so much noise. Let me read everything before I conclude. So yeah, I almost never use UITest for the reason you specified, but I'm thinking that this could be the future where everything is sped up artificially 8 times and would make it actually usable. Yeah, definitely. This kind of tasks which are like super uninteresting to do for a developer, I agree. It could definitely help. And yeah, I guess there might have been some tiny bit of like noise because it was just like so noisy. Okay, so we've been trying ChatGPT in Xcode for 1 hour and a half. What's the conclusion? Number one is that like the basic use case like works. It's able to like use images along with text. It's able to like search your project to some extent. It's able to create new files, so it can do a few things. But we still saw that there is limitations in what it can do, meaning that it can generate code that is unneeded for the feature you asked it for. It can hallucinate modifiers that do not exist. So these are more like limitations of ChatGPT. But we also saw that the integration in Xcode, honestly, feels very like rough. It's either changes are applied automatically or the AI to apply them is like really subpar compared to what Cursor offers. Most of the time it applies automatically, but sometimes it doesn't, and you need to tell the AI, yes, I want the change to be applied. So it's a bit inconsistent. So I'm hopeful that this will be improved over the summer by the time of the final release of Xcode 26, and then over time, as we get like incremental updates over the year. But I don't think if it's in a state yet where it can be like a tool for a developer that want to use it at scale on a large project in a way that will save that developer a lot of time. I feel for that like Cursor is still a better solution because you can handle like you have a better UX, you can set like rules also, and the fact that you need to switch back to Xcode to build, I'm pretty sure it evens out when with the issues and the quirks that there are in Xcode. However, the fact that the feature is available now directly inside Xcode makes it way more discoverable, makes it way easier for people to test, to give it a try, which was not the case with Cursor. It was not like a big like task to try Cursor with iOS, but it was not as immediate as just like clicking on this panel on Xcode. So I would say if I had to give it a grade from like A to like F, I guess I would put it somewhere at C. For now, C plus, something like that. It's not like super amazing to deserve an A. It's not polished enough to deserve a B. So like it's something. It's a V0. It's a bit rough around the edges. I sincerely hope that it will be improved over the summer because I feel like this feature, well integrated, could make like a lot of sense. And we've seen with Cursor that it's possible to achieve like better integrations. So I really hope that it's going to come up. But I'm still glad that I've tried it and that now I know like what it's good for and what it's not good for. Typically, when I need a simple version of a basic like setting screen or something like that to prepare for a video, I will definitely use it because I think it will do the job much faster than I could. For a big project, I would be a bit more like wary. I would test it in some specific scenarios, maybe things around test. For example, around generating mock data. But I think if you try to give it like the information of a linear ticket and ask it to generate like code for you, I'm not sure it will be able to like give you the result. And the fact that there are no checkpoints and things like that means that it might be harder to refine on that initial result. So I'm glad to see and to read that you've enjoyed this live stream. What will be the next step? I plan to do a video where I look at what are the system prompts that Apple adds around the prompt that you write because it's really interesting. If you can't wait for my video, you can search for it on Google. Some people already made content around it, and you will see it's super interesting to see how it works. I will probably also do a video about the foundation model. So the LLM that you can run for free privately on device, because there are a lot of interesting things there, and some of the immediate use cases we think about for this LLM might not be what it is the most suited for. So I will also be covering that. And now I'm definitely feeling a bit tired, so it's time for me to stop. Before I finish, once again, big thank you to Revenue Cat for sponsoring this live stream. So remember, if you use in-app purchases in your app, or if you plan to use them in the future, you definitely want to check what they offer, because today they offer quite a complete collection of tools, from managing the in-app purchase to giving you analytics to implementing paywalls that you can update without updating your app. It's basically a great suite of tools to increase your revenue, hence the name Revenue Cat. So I would definitely recommend that you check it out. And once again, I have a big thank you to them for sponsoring this live stream. Thank you also for watching it. Thank you for the people who interacted in the chat. Your interactions make the live stream so much more valuable, especially for the people who will be watching the replay. So thanks a lot. And well, thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye-bye.